Hey there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of An Artist's Way of Healing. I am your host, Jonathan Palmiotti. I am excited you're here. Today, we have yet another exciting guest speaker to inspire us on his artist journey and to tell his story on how the arts has inspired him to become who and where he is today. Today, I present to you Alfred Bahna from Brooklyn, New York. Al, please say hi to our listeners.
Good morning, listeners. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jonathan, for having me on. It's always a great time with you. I know you a long time, and it's my pleasure to be here.
Currently residing in Sarasota, Florida, Alfred Bahna is the president of the Waffles Foundation, Inc., a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. He has worked for the Hallmark and Disney companies in leadership capacities. He started the Waffles Foundation in 2020 after losing his musician son, Matt, in 2019. Al, it's really great that you're here. Thank you so much for being here. Before we go into the list of questions that I have for you to kind of just tell your story, could you please briefly tell our audiences that are listening what exactly a 501c3 not-for-profit is?
So a 501c3 non-for-profit is something you get through the Internal Revenue Service. It's something that every organization needs. If you're thinking about starting a charitable organization, it's actually the gateway. It's the token that gets you on the subway, if you will. You really can't get any funding without being a 501c3 because it's kind of like it gives you this official stamp that you're a bona fide organization, that the IRS has checked your background, they've checked your mission statement, and everything lines up. So you'll find that anytime you start something, whether it be whatever group or whatever thing you're starting, the first or second question any group is going to ask if you're looking for money or you're looking for any kind of thing is your 501c3 number.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for that clarification and explanation of a 501c3. So Al, you spoke to me briefly about your organization, the Waffles Foundation, that was founded in the year 2020. How did it come about?
So the way that the foundation came about was just kind of like a response by myself and my wife that we had lost our son, Matt, who was a brilliant musician. He was a very, very talented person musically. His main thing in life was teaching younger musicians how to come into music and play music. He had discovered music at a very early age, and he was very good at it. And he became a session musician. He has, had a lot of connections in the musical world, a lot of professional musicians that he knew. And as much as he did and as popular as he kind of got, he had never cut his own record or anything like that, but he was very well known as a session musician. And session musicians tend to be among the most talented musicians because they often play, in his case, he played keyboard, he played lead guitar, he played banjo, pretty much anything with strings he could really play well. He actually started playing at 6 years old. About a year later, he came across this wonderful teacher, and a big shout out to, and he's a musician himself, Mr. Henry Diaz. He actually just cut a record, and it's available out there. And he had him as a teacher, and Mr. Diaz one day brought in an electric guitar. He actually brought in it was a Gibson guitar, I believe. And, kids when they're younger, they love acoustic stuff, but when you hear like the twang and the electric and the amazing sounds that an electric guitar can make, they're just kind of hooked right away. So when Mr. Diaz, he was kind of like, how can I describe him? If you've ever seen the movie School of Rock, yeah, and he's a real teacher. He's not a guy making believe. He's the real deal, and he's been a teacher for over 25 years, a music teacher. He teaches in Brooklyn, and he was just the most magnificent teacher for Matt. He was cool. He was, a hip kind of guy, and Matt really took off from there with it. So that was really the genesis of it. And when we moved to Florida, Matt went to Celebration High School, which is in the Disney town of Celebration. They have a fantastic music program, and that's kind of where he gained the name Waffles. Waffles, where he loved eating waffles for breakfast almost every morning in the cafeteria. So his friends nicknamed him Waffles. So it got to be that no one knew him as Matthew. They all knew him as Waffles. When we lost him in 2019, it was kind of like a call to action. I wanted to do something. Every parent, you're devastated by the loss of your child. Matt had been drinking. He had become an alcoholic. He was a very high functioning alcoholic, but he, as most men do, most men don't reach out, and he didn't reach out, even though he had so many people who loved him, myself and my wife and his friends and his girlfriend and so many people. I guess, for men, they just oftentimes, and a lot of times women too, but there is a stigma on men that they, when things happen, they tend to keep it in. And he was very expressive. He was an artist. He was the first person to come up to you at a party and talk to you, or he was very, very good with things like that. But he just chose to keep this kind of secret. And one night he made a very bad decision, and he drank a lot one night, and something happened at a rooftop bar, and we ended up losing him. I said to myself, I want to start a foundation where we're going to continue the legacy of Matt, what Matt wanted to do. I mean, I've always been interested in, charitable work and doing things. I'd worked for Disney and Hallmark, and those are two benchmark companies which believe very strongly in working with kids at risk, kids in need. So that's what I wanted to do. So the mission statement of the foundation is helping tomorrow's musicians today. And what we do is we're all about awareness, but what we do primarily is we provide musical instruments and lessons to kids who can't afford to play, kids who are in need, kids who are at risk. We work with a lot of after-school programs, two wonderful programs that we work with. One right here in Sarasota is called the 180 House, and we work with them. But we provide guitars. We also provide instruction. We have people who are retired teachers who go in and provide lessons. So we just kind of do everything we can to try to promote music, promote awareness, promote the arts, and work with tomorrow's musicians today.
That's really beautiful. I am a musician and theater person. I have been doing it for most of my life. I really feel like it's important to acknowledge what the Waffles Foundation is doing to provide instruments to those who need it. I am a music teacher. I teach piano once a week on the weekends, and I primarily teach children. And to be able to provide it to students that cannot afford it is just a beautiful mission. And I know that's something that your son Matthew would have wanted as a person that loves music. Started it really young at the age of 6. When I, found out about your organization, I was so happy to hear that you were able to make something good out of his name, because I know that's what he would have wanted. I've never met Matthew, but it sounds like he was a wonderful person. And not only is he proud of you, I'm sure there's so many parents that are listening to your story and they're hearing you and they're just so motivated, because not only are they motivated in the sense that the mission is great, but there are perhaps parents that have lost their children and they're looking at your organization as kind of a coping mechanism that they can relate to a story such as yours.
Absolutely. Anybody who calls who needs an instrument, I never ask them, what's your financial situation or whatever. Typically we seek out and we work with organizations that work with at-risk and in need. But if someone's out there and they need an instrument or something, contact us, because we work with everybody and anybody. And if someone has difficulty attaining an instrument, sometimes there's extreme situations where we had the hurricane down here in Florida, and there were kids who just lost everything, and we were able to give them instruments. And, eventually maybe those families got insurance or something came in years down the road. But we're a foundation that we donate to all races, all genders, all identifications. We don't ask those type of questions when people call up. And when you call up, you're going to be getting me. You're going to be getting Waffles' dad, because we're small and we're not really a big major organization. That's sometimes a good thing, because we get funding that way, because people love the fact that when they donate a guitar or something like that. Now, that's another facet of our foundation. People can donate instruments as well. The only things that we don't take, unfortunately, are pianos, and only because they're so big and you really can't store them. But if anybody wants to donate an instrument, we pass it along, and I put it on my Facebook page, and they love the fact that they can see where it goes and see the kid who gets it. I'm a big believer in that. So that's kind of like, and I never want to get so big where we lose that. So the dream is always, yeah, you want to keep every year doing different things or whatever, but I never want to lose that facet of that personalization that we have with the foundation, because it's really special, and it really makes a difference, I think.
Now, just out of curiosity, though, I know that you definitely had the mission to create what the Waffles Foundation is today. Before or as you were kind of thinking about the Waffles Foundation and the organization that you wanted to start, was the organization, did it have a different idea in your mind about what it was, and then it transformed into what it is today?
Yes. Well, it never was something completely different. I think what it was initially, because Matt passed from a suicide. I think in the initial stages, and up until maybe even a year or two ago, I had more of a focus on, we still do suicide awareness and things like that. But my initial feeling as a parent who lost a child to suicide was, I want to do what I can to try to help people who are in that situation. As I've gone along and as I've seen, you really need a professional in the mix of this. Someone who's in the throes of depression or anxiety or addiction, which is often the case. There's a higher amount of that with artists and things. The original thing had a little more to do with suicide prevention, which of course we're still involved with. But as I went along, I realized that I went away from that part of it because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I mean, people have called me and they've asked me things, and I'm all too happy to get on the phone with someone and try to help them through a problem or situation. But at the end of the day, I'm not a professional in terms of that. So it did go through a little switch. It was kind of a dual prong 50-50 thing, which was, suicide prevention and providing instruments. I would say now we're more 80-20. We're more providing instruments and support and service hours and things. And I try to leave more of that to the professionals because, having lost Matt and having seen a few more people over the years who, not that we really knew close, but it just, you need professional help in that situation. And that's why you have the national number now that they have up there. And it's a big help. So that's in answer to your question. Yeah, it has switched a little bit, but it was always about giving instruments to kids. But now I think I've switched it more 80-20 to going about the instruments and service hours as opposed to the suicide prevention angle.
I love the mission of the Waffles Foundation. In fact, as I'm looking at you with your Waffles Foundation shirt, I'm kicking myself a little bit that I forgot to bring my Waffles Foundation pin that I purchased. Are the Waffles Foundation shirts for sale as well? Or
They are for sale. You can go to, I actually do a podcast. It's called Monorail Tales. So if you go to monorailtales.com, if someone wants to get involved with Waffles, we do a thing called, you can become an ambassador. So we have ambassadors in different cities in America. So Sheila Sanders is our ambassador to Rock Hill, South Carolina. And she runs this podcast called Monorail Tales, which I'm a part of. So she was nice enough to put it on her website rather than me putting product on my website and facilitating the deliveries. And here's the thing, which I'm very proud of with the foundation, and it ties into your question. 100% of the money which people donate to us goes toward the kids, goes toward the programs. Everything here is volunteer. We don't have any kind of thing that we pay out to other than like website things. And, we pay like $5 a month to maintain the website, but there's really no money that goes out. The money goes toward the foundation. I don't have to sit with 400 shirts here and mugs, and mugs are available. We have license plates, whatever people want.
So I know that you said that from our brief time together working at the Times Square Disney store that your son was a musician. You also mentioned it just recently now. And I think you started to say that he played a slew of different instruments. What instruments did he play? Did he have any role models that inspired his playing, aside from the teacher that you mentioned? If so, who are they or who were they?
Yes, he was in a really great circle of friends and people. And one of the people he met in Celebration High School was, he's an artist. His name is Sam Siri. He was on America's Got Talent last year, and he got really, really far. He's got this incredible voice. And Sam Siri is part of he fronts this band called the Nicotine Dolls, and they're out in New York City. They're on tour right now. But Matt met Sam in middle school, and Sam was very, very shy and talking to people initially, and Matt became his friend. Matt was his first friend, and they talked music together. And as a parent, when you lose a child, you don't know what to say. You want people to know that your child was good and what they did. And let me tell you, I'll put this out there. Matt wasn't a saint. Matt wasn't this absolutely 100% perfect person. He was a very, very good person. Him and I were complete opposites, but we got along like, peanut butter and jelly, I guess, because Matt, in terms of doing a project, I always tell these stories, he would drive you crazy. He was focused on the music, but he wasn't so focused on his academics. He would do it at the last minute. I would tell him, did you do that curriculum fair? Did you whatever? And it was difficult because he wasn't focused on that. Matt was a real person, and he was a very good person. But again, he got involved with addiction. He should have reached out. But the thing of it is that he didn't, and that was what happened. So that was an early inspiration, meeting his friend Sam, and we went to Disney together. And if you look at this little video that Sam did about Matt, it explains a little bit how close they were in middle school. But a funny story, one of Matt's inspirations, oddly enough, is Matt liked video games as well. And his real galvanizing moment was when my wife and I had bought him, I think it was Pro Skater 3, which was a game from probably
Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk, correct. Yeah. Yes.
I used to play those games, yeah.
And it has a killer soundtrack on it with AC/DC, and it's a who's who of who's on that record, on that video game. And right about that time when he's in school, Mr. Diaz, and he had this video game, and that was his galvanizing moment where this is what he wanted to do. In fact, so later on, fast forwarding maybe like 10 years, he actually met Tony Hawk in New York City. And when he met Tony Hawk, he said, you're the reason I became a musician. And Tony Hawk was kind of like baffled. He was like, Matt, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm a skater. I'm not a musician. He goes, no, you don't understand. He goes, I played your game, Pro Skater 3. And that soundtrack on that game, I'm sure you were involved in agreeing to that soundtrack or whatever way it was. He goes, but that galvanized me into becoming a musician. Oddly enough, Tony Hawk was a very big force in getting him into that direction. Matt just loved music. He was one of these aficionados of music who he loved every genre of music. He loved every time period of music, which was great for me. It was a great bonding thing for him and I because he loved the music of the 70s and 80s that I grew up. I mean, what better thing is to have your son playing like, an Elton John song or playing a Peter Frampton song or something that was big when I was younger or something from the 80s. He could play anything on guitar or banjo or acoustic or, so, and his playing kept developing. It started, he really got into it with the electric, but toward the end of his life, he always took an acoustic guitar with him no matter where he went. And toward the end, the last 6-7 months of his life, he was pretty much playing the 12-string acoustic guitar. He had gotten to that level where he was very comfortable with it. And that was like his instrument of choice. That was the one he was walking around with the last 6-7 months of his life, was that 12-string, which I still have like 5 of his guitars and one of his banjos that he had. And yeah, those I won't give away. Those are kind of like, I bring them out and let people play them and things like that. But those are just
as a prized possession to you now.
Yeah. Those are like his most prized possession. Like I said, we let people play them. And I have a friend of mine who's great. He restrings everything, that we need for the foundation. So yeah, so that's what I do when I go out and I do little events or whatever. I bring those out and, and I say, okay, Waffles played this or whatever. And it's just kind of cool.
I have a 1-year-old now, and I think we spoke about that. And I, as you're talking, I'm just kind of thinking about like, as he grows up, I always wonder like what he's going to be interested in. Is he going to be interested in music and theater? Is he going to be interested in any of my hobbies like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Marvel, Lord of the Rings? I love all that stuff. So that's stuff that like I always think about in the back of my mind. Is he going to really, take up on that? Is he going to really enjoy the same things as I do? And I really hope so. And if not, that's okay too. But, it's really nice that you and Matthew were able to kind of share, especially music, like you just said, this in, the 70s and 80s that you were growing up in that time period. And that's what you were really appreciated. And it's also, as they grew up and they are listening to music, it's really kind of like reassuring or just nice to hear like, oh, you really like it. And it kind of makes you feel good because that's what you are used to. I just think about myself and me as a new dad. And, it's really inspiring to hear you talk about that.
Oh, thank you. You're going to find that they like totally different things. My wife and I have zero musical talent whatsoever. We don't, I guess it skipped a generation or something. And I always love music, but I mean, I love baseball. I love to drive. Matt didn't. Matt was like a New York type of guy. He never really, he could play baseball really well, but he wasn't that interested in it. He would go to a game. Of course, he loved Disney, which was great. Who doesn't love Disney, right? But they always surprise you. And, as a parent, I think it's important to really know your child and know what they're capable of. I mean, like I said, Matt academically was never, he could get his B's or his A's, but his focus was the arts. And thankfully, we identified that really early. And I remember when he went into Celebration High School, they were like, "Oh, we want to put him into our honors program." And I was like, "Listen, don't put him in the honors program. I want him to enjoy his high school experience. I want him to be in the music club. I want him to take his music classes. That's what he wants to do." And years later, he had always said that was like among the happiest time of his life. I mean, that for us was like living in heaven. I mean, to live in Celebration, the Disney town, and to be able to go to Disney, every other day or whatever, we just all of his friends would get together and we'd go over there. The key thing is if you can hopefully identify what your child loves and love it with them, because you can't force them to like something that they don't like. And so and it makes you a better person too, because it opens up a world for you as a parent, as a dad, as a mom, guardian, whatever you are. And there's nothing better than being close to your child. So the thing is, as much as I miss Matt every single day, and that's like the hardest thing. At the same time, I've met people who've said, it's such a horrible thing that your son died at 27, but they'll tell me their kid moved out at 18 or 16, or the kid was emancipated, at 17, and they don't really talk or they don't really whatever. And so, like, I'm grateful in the sense that I only had him for 27 years, but we were super, super close. And that's like, one positive, or one little positive thing in Pandora's box, or whatever, if you will, that I always think about. And that's what helps bring the legacy forward and help me keep it going. And, I just picked out an invitation for our event that's coming up on May 17th. And Matt never saw The Mandalorian before, but I put The Mandalorian. It was one of those invitations for Games with Guitars 3. And I said, I know he would have absolutely loved this.
Now, as a father of a musician, what does the phrase being an artist mean to you? And what kind of feelings spark inside you when you think about being an artist? Also, has your definition of art changed in the past couple of years based on your life experiences that you have faced?
Yeah, well, to me, being an artist is just kind of living your truth. One of the things about being an artist is you're free, in a sense, and you want to always be a free artist. A lot of people ask me, did Matt ever play in a band? He had played in a couple of little bands or whatever, but he liked living in the moment, being very spontaneous. Matt was a minute-to-minute person. So I think being an artist it's kind of like you're living your truth, you're living your dream, in a sense that if you think about songs, right? Think about the song Rhinestone Cowboy. And what is that song really about? One of the lines in that song is, "There's been a load of compromising on the road to my horizon." And what it really means, in a sense, is that a person who's an artist is willing to put it all out there on the line. They're going to practice, they're going to play. It's not about really the money. Most artists, yeah, eventually people want to make money and they want a big house, but most artists are really not really like that. Most artists are not really materialistic. A lot of them just want to apply their craft and they want to be in the moment. They want to go to the record store and have these conversations with fellow artists. So what does it really mean? It just means that you're willing to go out there and practice, and you're willing to, live your dream, and you're willing to, whether it be take lessons or whether it be just practice on your own. It's just the thing that you get to where it's a love, it's a passion for what you're doing. And how has it changed for me? I mean, now I don't have any musical talent, but I always feel like I'm an artist because that's kind of how I am. I'm very idealistic, and I believe, more about making a difference in the world, making it a little bit better. They kind of want to make the world a better place. They want to enhance it with their music, and they want to bring joy and beauty to the world. A lot of times artists just want to show the beauty, the better part of life, and also talk about the painful part of life too, because that's a great song if you could write a song like that, which many have done. To me, being an artist is just living your truth.
Yeah. A lot of people, they do art because they just really want to do it for fun. I know that art might even just mean something even more to you now. I could imagine that your feeling on the arts and music, especially, has transformed, especially after, like a moment that you've had in your life, such as, Matthew, and how you've kind of just taken another recognition of what exactly that art does, especially for you. I mean, you created an organization just in his name. So, I can imagine how much it really means to you. And I think a lot of the time art kind of saves people. It provides hope for those who lose hope, or it provides that comfort, should people need it. And that's something that really is amazing. So I do have another question. If you had to pick the top three most proud accomplishments of your art career, what would they be and why? I would assume that creating the Waffles Foundation would definitely be number one.
Yes, one of the organizations which we work with is a great organization in our hometown of New York City, right? It's called Operation Music Project, and what they do is these are teachers who work for Juilliard School of Music, and they teach underprivileged children in the New York City area. So we sponsor kids in that program. So when I started working with this Operation Music Project, it was such a magnificent thing because they do such a wonderful job. That's the most recognized school in the entire world in terms of music. And to be allied and partnered with such a magnificent organization, and to be able to talk to the director of their foundation, and to be kind of like friends with her and really be on the same page. And she's an amazing cellist. Her name is Jessica, and she's wonderful to work with. So when I got to that point, I really felt like, that the foundation had come to a certain aspect where we were allied with such a great organization. So that would definitely be the second moment in that. And then the third moment was actually by accident, which was doing the service hours for the at-risk kids in Florida, which it was something that I had never even thought about. And one day I got a phone call, and there were two parents from a kid who had, had a problem. And I said, wow, I can't believe I never really thought about this before. And the fact that we're offering that now and keeping kids out of the system, a lot of times, even though something is a non-for-profit, it doesn't mean it's going to be interesting to a kid. Most kids are interested in music, and the fact that it offers them that is great because, we give them a lot of latitude. Being 58, I'm not the most adept at technology, or maybe posting things online, or what platforms are happening out there. So that's what a lot of times what they help us with is things like that. So I'd say that was really the third aspect of it, was this year when I felt that. It was really a great corner to turn, and very proud of those things right there.
That's beautiful. But yeah, that actually gets me into my next question. You're probably getting several donations and instruments coming through the organization weekly, if not daily. You're also meeting different people. Have you ever met some of the kids that you have been able to donate instruments to? What was that experience like?
It feels great. Luckily, I get to meet almost all the kids who we donate instruments to, especially if they're in Florida. The last one that I donated, which was just incredible, was we have a little boy who plays the keyboard, and he's got five brothers and sisters. And he had asked his mom for a keyboard, and it was Christmas time, and she said, "Oh, we can't afford to get it. You have your instruments and your lessons." But so what happened was I came across this magnificent keyboard that someone donated to me, and really, really nice keyboard. I mean, top of the line keyboard. So I asked his mother, "Can he have the keyboard?" She said yes. So we did this whole surprise thing at his practice sessions that he does on Saturday, and I brought the keyboard in, and I said, "Oh, why don't you try this one?" So he tried it, and he absolutely loved it. So I said, "How about you take this keyboard home with you?" He goes, "What do you mean? I could take this home?" And he looked at his mother. She goes, "Yeah, it's your keyboard now." Just the look on his face and just the expression was just, it's priceless. For me, it's unbelievable because it reminds me of, going to the music store with Matt. Matt had this, no matter how many instruments he owned, and he didn't own that many, but he never got tired of trying new instruments out, or, getting something different. It reminds me of that, and it keeps me in that wheelhouse of that feeling. But for me, it felt great because here's a kid now who could be the next, whatever, Elton John or Billy Joel or maybe even a teacher, a music teacher, anybody. And the expression on his face is just incredible. So, yeah, so I'm lucky in that my wife and I will get into a truck and we'll deliver the instrument, whether it be a guitar or any kind of thing that we have, or an acoustic or a keyboard. And we get to meet the kids, we get to meet the parents. We also, instruments are donated. That's a fantastic thing too, because people know they're passing it on. But looking at those children's eyes and seeing how excited they are, there's no greater feeling in the world than that. And that's when you kind of know. You asked me, what is being an artist? You could see that these kids have all these things developing.
That's the start of their potential possible career in the arts, and why they got into it. Like, for example, you said about your son's teacher in regards to, when he first brought a guitar in front of the kids' eyes, and how everybody, I'm sure all the kids in the class, their eyes just lit up in regards to how beautiful it is. This is that spark, that start for that particular child, and what could be a beautiful career within the arts.
Exactly. It's funny because you and I worked for Disney. I always think of the Figment song, in imagination, one little spark. And it's kind of that one little spark created everything. And the parents and the mom, mom was crying. I mean, it just was just incredible. No better moment than that.
I love that. I love that so much. I can imagine by donating instruments, you are receiving several thank you calls and letters daily. Have you ever received any letters saying that you healed someone or changed their lives or saved them? Maybe an email, a text, a phone call, or even a notification from someone who felt like you helped heal them at an instance when they couldn't afford to buy an instrument or something like that?
Yes, we get letters oftentimes when we donate the instruments, which is almost all the time. We get a nice letter from that. We get pictures that we post on our website. I posted on our Facebook page, and it's just kind of like a lot of the kids will draw a picture, and it's crayons or whatever, and it just means the world, and it's a fabulous thing. And it's funny, I have a few of those from Matt as well, because I told you Matt used to teach kids how to play instruments and things. We've got like 4 or 5 things like that from kids who've given it to him, just little simple drawings of him showing them how to play the guitar or whatever. So it's the same kind of thing, and it kind of comes full circle. And there's nothing greater than that. And we maintain the relationship with them. We call them up from time to time. A lot of them show up at our events. Last year at our event, we had a couple of the kids playing an instrument at the event, and it's just nice. And it's not a requirement. It's just they come there and people say, "Oh, why don't you play that?" Or "Can you play it?" Or they just And the thing of it is like Matt used to bring the guitar around. A lot of these kids will bring the thing with them. They like having it with them. And if you think about it, some of these kids have gone through tremendous upheavals in their lives, be it hurricane, be it having to move away from their city or their country or their whatever. And they oftentimes don't have any real possessions. And having this guitar, or even sometimes a harmonica or something smaller, which we'll donate sometimes to kids, whatever they want, it makes such a difference to them, because now they have something that's theirs. Some kids live out of homeless shelters and they don't really have a lot of clothes or possessions, but they can bring that acoustic guitar from place to place, or that harmonica or that clarinet or whatever thing that they have, and that's their world, knowing that and seeing that. And I just have this amazing dream, and my wife always laughs at me. She's always having these dreams and whatever. But I think it's going to be a reality one day, that one day we're going to be doing an event somewhere, a fundraiser. Maybe 5 years from now, 6 years from now, someone will be 18 years old, and they'll just come up and they'll be like, "Hey, guess what? We have an announcement. I just got a record contract or something, or I'm in this band now, and I'm going to do this 2-hour set for free for the foundation for kids' music." And that's just going to be a magnificent moment, and I just can't wait to see something like that.
Yeah, and I just want to hit on one of the things that you actually mentioned within what you were just speaking about, is in regards to actually kids that come from homeless shelters, or just don't have a lot of money. Their families just can't afford. I actually did an episode with someone else that you'll hear as someone that's going to listen to the podcast. They're actually a chef. And in the organization that they work in, they actually serve underserved communities foods. And one of the conversations that we were having was simply around the idea that parents can't afford to feed their kids, so they actually have to resort to sending their kids to school for that child to get a bite to eat. And that was obviously a very difficult time during COVID. And what the organization was doing to kind of help with that situation was really remarkable. And you'll listen a little bit more about that. But my point is the fact that these underserved communities are just as entitled to the foods, the music, as just as much as anybody else that can afford something. And why not? In fact, as long as the opportunity is given to that individual, who's to say that they can use that talent to spiral their career into something beautiful and worthwhile for them, and even for their family to just see their child, grow and accomplish so many things. So I just think about that when you spoke about the instance and how providing these instruments helps those types of communities when they don't have the funds or the financial stake to be able to commit to something like that, because they're so focused on other things that they have to invest in order to keep themselves alive.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. And, when you think about it, there are certain things in life that bring people together no matter what. Food is one of those things. So in other words, if you went to a country and you didn't speak the language and they didn't speak your language, how would you communicate? How would you get along with those folks? And one of the things is food. I mean, food is a universal thing. Chess is kind of a universal thing. And music. I mean, even if you don't understand the language, you can listen to music of any language, and it kind of catches you. And music opens up so many doors. And again, if you're a person, you're mentioning kids who are homeless, kids who move around a lot, talk about a great entrance into a school. If you could play a guitar, or you could, they always said, if you move into a neighborhood, if you have a dog or a pickup truck, you'll make a lot of friends. Well, as a kid, you can have a dog, but you really can't buy the dog yourself, and you can't drive a pickup truck. But if you're playing a guitar, or you're playing a musical instrument, or, and just to say out there, the voice is an instrument. So we have people who we sponsor too, who don't play actual instruments. The voice is an instrument. We work with a group called the Nubian Conservatory of Music in Brooklyn, and we sponsor 2 kids there who actually specialize in voice. We try to do the whole package, but the point of it is that having that kind of talent and going into a new situation, it's going to build you friends. It's a cause for confidence. You got to realize, how do you feel as a kid, as a person? You're moving around. Your relatives might be in a different country or a different state, and you need some kind of confidence to make you feel that you're worth something, because it's easy to think that you get lost in the shuffle. It's a big world out there. So this is one of the things that we strive for as well. And giving back and knowing, even though Matt grew up in a middle-class family and he had stability, music gave him such a tremendous confidence. He could just walk into a room and just start playing the guitar, and people just would come over to him and talk to him, and can you play this? Can you play that? Whatever. And it was just such a coming together of people. And that's the thing we want to share. And that's the thing that I see with a lot of these kids that we give instruments to. It gives them this tremendous confidence. They almost kind of walk a couple of inches taller, because now they kind of have something that's theirs. And there's no greater story in the world than that. It's magnificent. It's the best of all the work that we do.
If I was someone that actually ran an organization like yours, and maybe 5-10 years from now, I'd be so curious in regards to what are they up to now? What are they doing? Maybe 20 years. Like, how are they using that instrument that you gave them to really spiral their career? And I'm sure that, not only are you impacted, but they're very much impacted by that moment. And they'll never probably ever forget that moment when they received their first instrument. And I feel like that has to do with any artist. An artist never forgets, the idea of exactly when they started and why are usually things that artists take with them for the rest of their career. Going forward, a lot of the time artists feel a sense of regret or I should have done that a little differently Do you ever get those feelings? Do you ever think about that one instance where something just didn't work out the way you had hoped? Perhaps a specific moment that stands out to you more than another?
Well, I think, the thing that I think of is oftentimes with Matt. Like I said, we were very lucky that we identified very early that Matt wanted to be an artist, that he, even if Matt worked in a record store, that would have been because that's what he wanted to be around. But one of the things that I regret is that, I always worried about him maybe becoming, addicted to something, or maybe drinking too much, or what I found to be the hardest thing that Matt would go through sometimes was that many people that he was with would all of a sudden, maybe they would get married or something would happen, and they'd be like, listen, I love doing this. And that's kind of what happened in the movie School of Rock. That one guy kind of fell away, and people fall away sometimes. And I think that was maybe one of the reasons why Matt was, maybe he was a little depressed toward the end. Was like, I think a few of his friends that he was close with kind of fell away from it a little bit, and they kind of had to get quote unquote real jobs or whatever. So, what do I regret? I don't know if it's a regret, but I had always worried that, something, you always worried that when you get somebody into something that it might go opposite, because, it's a big world out there and not everything is perfect. And no matter where you work or what you do, things can happen. But I try to look at it this way. I try to look at it like, my goal in life is whatever God puts in my path. Now, I can't end poverty. I can't give every single kid in the world an instrument that wants one or who wants one. But what I can do is, I have this feeling that if God puts something in my path, in my power to do something, I try to do it for them, that it's meant to be, that there's a reason for it. And even though I don't know the reason, because a lot of people have said to me, well, Matt passed away, and if he didn't pass away, you wouldn't be doing this foundation, and you're making such a difference. And I don't know really how I feel about that, because maybe, I think I might have still done something, but maybe not. I don't know. You always kind of feel that, this is where it's going. But I guess what I'm saying is, if God puts it in my path, then I feel like I try to take action on it, and I'll give the kid the instrument. And you always hope that someone's praying for that kid, or someone's out there to kind of like hold them back or prevent them from doing something that they shouldn't do or whatever. In Matt's case, it was just the night he passed, it was the perfect storm, and things just didn't work out his way. And 100 things could have happened to prevent it, but it just didn't. So that's it. So that's what I kind of regret a little bit. I mean, as far as like he himself, I mean, he and I were very close, as I mentioned, and we had tons of conversations, and that's what made it hard that, he didn't really reach out the way he should have or could have. But at the same time, you provide the best you can. And I know that he, the last thing he told me was that I love you. And he told me that. And, I didn't know that's what he was going to end up doing that night or trying to do or whatever. But that was important. So I think that's what you kind of regret, that you always have that worry. But I think worry is a good thing in a sense, because everybody is worried. When you get into a car and you drive, you should be worried, because you want to be careful and you want to do the right thing. So I think God gives us those feelings of worry and conscience and things like that. And I just guess that, we don't know all the answers. We don't have all the answers. As a father of a child who passed away, we all raise these questions as to why and what was the reason for it. You don't know, you don't really know. But I guess at the end of the day, we just have to trust. And I will say that I do feel Matt around me. And I do feel, there's days that I listen to the radio and there'll be 4 or 5 songs in a row that he really loved, or, whatever. And there's times you feel like that their spirit is definitely around you. So I think that's what you really think of. In terms of regret, I think that's the best way I can answer it, is something like that.
Yeah. And I truly believe that the spirit is probably around you and your wife, and honestly, in a sense, protecting you and your wife. And he's there, even though he's not physically there, he's still there with you both. And he's seeing this path that you're on. And I know that, this is a very difficult time for you and your family. Still is, as it was before when it happened. The thing that I just constantly come back to in my mind is, you're doing something beautiful to impact others. And maybe you'll never really heal from a moment like this. You can at least find joy in giving back to other people, and that's healing them. That makes you happy. And like I said, Matt would probably be very proud of you guys for doing what you're doing.
So too. I think he is. I think so too. Thank you, Jonathan.
Sure. Yeah. And I really mean that. My question, though, would be, because then this would probably lead into that one. Do you sometimes ever feel like you can't relate to others because of your life experiences? Are there any barriers that you face?
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know about relating, but it's definitely always the gorilla in the room, because most times folks just don't know what to say. I think it's a little harder for my wife, because my wife is not outgoing the way I am. I think if anybody who knows me, they know I have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel, I put channels on the, things on the YouTube channel relating to the foundation a lot of times. But if people know me, they know that I'm okay with talking about it. I'm of the opinion I feel better when I talk about it. My wife finds it very difficult to listen to Matt's music and see his picture and things like that. We kind of, and that's the thing about grieving that I want to tell anybody out there who's listening, who's lost a child or a parent or anybody who they love. There is no rule book on grieving. You just have to grieve the way it works best for you. And the way it works best for me is by doing the foundation, by being involved in the music community. Because when I do that, I feel like Matt is still around. I know he's still around me spiritually, but it makes me feel the way I did when he was really alive, which is we went to music stores left and right. We went to concerts left and right. And, something happened, to an artist or whatever. He would text me, "Did you hear about this? This happened or that happened." Initially, when I meet someone, and I do think it's difficult for people to relate. I think there's a very difficult bridge that people go on, in the sense that I told you I have a brother and a sister. They both have children. I'm close to all those kids. But there's times when you feel like, Easter time is coming up, as a for instance, or Christmas time or whatever, and they're getting together with their children. And I think they always get into this position where, do we send them the pictures of, us getting together with our kids? Is it going to make them feel bad? Or, but so I tell them, listen, I said, I don't want to not know. I don't want to, I love everybody. I want to know what's going on. But it does, initially when you meet someone, it does cause that barrier, because people just don't know what to say. And in terms of the death of a child, it is the absolute worst possible thing on the face of the earth. And you're a dad now, you would know, you would give your life for your child in a heartbeat, and you would, whatever infliction or whatever thing that they have, you would trade anything to take on that pain for your child. And it's definitely the hardest thing in the world. So it's a very scary topic. Some people just don't want to talk about it. They find it difficult to talk about it.
Yeah, and in those instances, I think the best thing is just to listen to that person that's grieving.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that you have to comment on it. Just to listen is also powerful, because people have different ways and coping mechanisms, like you were just saying. In this situation, like me, just listening, I don't feel it's appropriate to even comment on something like that. Where just listening is just helping,
Yes, it is. And knowing that you're not alone, and knowing that there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, you have the suicide prevention number now, which is 988, which is kind of like the 911 thing. You can call up if someone's having a problem. There's plenty of things to reach out to. But yeah, it can be very difficult. And what is it? I mean, and what do? You blame yourself. No matter what happens, with your child, you tend to blame yourself. You say you go back in time. What if I didn't support this? What if I told Matt he should have been a police officer, or he should have been something or other. But the reality is you look back on the photographs and you think back on the memories. And I have thankfully a tremendous memory of thinking about all these fun times that we had and things that we did, all these zany situations. Even when Matt died, thankfully I had this feeling Matt was all about, positivity, and he wasn't about, a sad face or whatever. So when he passed away, when we had the wake, I had said to the folks there, I was like, listen, I said, we all miss Matt. I miss Matt. I said, but rather than everybody sitting here and being sad, if whoever wants, we had an open microphone there, and why don't everybody come up and tell a funny story about Matt? That's what Matt would want. Matt was a very funny person. He would make you laugh. Even as a little kid, when if my wife had and I had a disagreement, he would actually, when he started playing the keyboard, he would play that circus song. Dun, 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 dun. I don't even know the name of the song, but when, oh, I don't want to go to Planet of the Apes. Oh, I want to see this. I don't want to see that. Whatever. And he'd start playing his song. Dun, 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 so he was always funny. So at his wake, people got up and told funny stories about Matt, and I think he would have loved that. And I think it was. And again, I have never been to a wake like that. I'm not saying all wake was the best wake ever, but it was the way we coped with it. Because when a young person passes away, I mean, let me tell you, there were hundreds of people that showed up, and not only because Matt was a good person, but when a young person passes away, there's a lot more of a lot more people show up, and there's more contemporaries. To say it was a good time wouldn't have been the right thing, but it wasn't really. It was something Matt would have approved of.
But
He
that's also why I think people say when someone passes that's loved, it's a celebration of life.
Yes, yes. It's a celebration of life. So much so that the priest who was there, because we're Catholic, but the priest who was there actually said, he's listening. He goes, it's been 3 hours. He said, can I do I actually have another wake I have to go to? And it was, so there was funny moments in it where it was just like, I know he's up there kind of watching and laughing at this, but so the priest, please, can I do what I have to do? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. And we had to actually stop a few people from going up there. And yeah, it was kind of crazy. Anyway, so I would suggest to folks out there, if something like that happens, maybe keep that in mind. And again, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you that do things from the way you feel. It's your child, it's your loved one. Try to do what they would want in terms of whatever. Don't be worried about standing on ceremony or whatever. And, oh, this has never been done before. And no, it's your loved one. And I'm not saying swing from the chandeliers, but it was a different experience. And lots of people came up after and said, you know what, it was so sad and whatever, but thank you, because you made me laugh. And I heard these stories about Matt that I'd never really heard, or I'd only known half the story, and the actual person told the story. And it was just, it was very different. And I'm glad we did it that way. That's one thing I'm very happy about, is that we did it that way.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for that. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be able to relate to that story, especially, to what you said in regards to when they had to witness the passing of someone that they loved dearly. I'm sure that people listening now are really kind of just thinking about a new perspective on their life in their situations. Many people believe that art heals people. What are your thoughts on the arts helping people heal themselves?
Oh, it's 100%. The arts definitely heal. All you have to do is go out there and listen to a songwriter or a musician, and it's just so healing, because you're reaching other people, you're expressing yourself. No matter what you want to do in life, is you want to express yourself in a positive way, and music brings that out in people. Maybe you can't say it in front of a group, or whatever, or you can write it, but it's definitely a way of doing that. And there's no better avenue than music to get the message out there, and to do that with. And it's very, very healing. I just heard on the radio yesterday, there was a guy in Texas who had called into, it's an XM station, and he said that he wasn't able to combat his addiction. And what he did was he started listening to all the, Elton John's one of my favorite artists, and Elton John does a wonderful amount of good. He has his AIDS foundation, and he does so many different things for people. So that's a really big inspiration. But and George Harrison of the Beatles, who did the concert for Bangladesh, is also probably the person I channel more than anybody in terms of, doing this kind of work. But a guy was talking about, he went back and he listened to all the old Elton John albums from start to finish. And I think Elton's got about 35 albums, but he started listening to all these albums. And anytime he wanted to go have a drink or whatever, or go to a bar, he would listen to these albums. And he got such inspiration, especially from Elton's earlier albums. They were very folksy albums, and, from like 68 to about 75. And he just received so much inspiration that he had to call the XM station, and they put this out there. So there's a tremendous amount of inspiration in music, and you just have to just turn on the radio or turn on anything to see it. And
Yeah, and you never know exactly what type of art is going to actually heal someone because, music may be the healing for you. But then just looking at a painting, it's amazing because just
yeah,
looking at a painting and like it could be an abstract painting that you go into like the museum and just look at it and it just changes your perspective on life. And that's amazing just to think about looking at something you're down in your luck, you're struggling, you're not in the right mindset. Then you go into the museum, as many people do, they go into the museum because it's very therapeutic to just look at paintings. And I'm sure that there's other ways to find therapeutic moments, but you go to a museum to look at a paintings in general, and you just find one and you see something in that just kind of makes you think about life differently. And it just changes something in you and helps you heal from a moment where you felt like you just really were not there.
precisely. And you identify and you say, well, I'm not alone. There's other people who feel this way. And it gives you inspiration, gives you tenacity.
Do you feel like you need to be an artist to heal through the arts, or can anyone be healed through the arts?
Oh no, anyone can heal through the arts. That's the amazing thing about it, is that if you either you're playing the instrument, or you're listening to the music, or you're drawing the album art, whatever you're doing, or you're doing anything. No, you can draw inspiration from nature, from people, from any situation. It's important. That's where it's from. No, you don't have to be an artist at all. I think in some way everyone's an artist to some point of view, but I think people who quote unquote really are an artist, even those people need inspiration. Everybody needs inspiration. Everybody has debts in the family. They have things that happen. They find out that they have diabetes or some condition. And what do most people do is they turn to music or to movies, which is kind of like interchangeable because there's always music and movies. But the arts are kind of a way for people to forget. And it could be architecture. You go to Walt Disney World. Some people love the windows on Main Street. There's so many things you can look at, and there's so many ways. So you don't have to be an artist, but it's there for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I feel like, just people going to a show or watching a movie, I think about that. Or like I said, going to a museum. Those are people that potentially just want to go just for I need to get away. But then it does something different. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. If you were able to go back in time, what would you tell yourself when you were looking for healing? Would you have said something that might have been helpful for your journey? And then what would you tell a future up and coming artist who is looking for a way to navigate the arts and to find healing simultaneously?
Right. Well, I would just go back and tell myself, just again, that word tenacity, just kind of stay the course. Initially, things don't make sense, and some things might never make sense. But the more you go on, the more you put that ball in motion, you meet people along the way, and they come from, heaven knows where. I mean, you might meet someone. I mean, I meet people now all over the place, whether we're in the supermarket or wherever, and you never know where that inspiration is going to come. So I would just say hold the course, and just I would tell myself, I mean, I tend to be a patient person, but in something like that, sometimes you might not be. But I would just say, be patient, hold the course. You might never have all the answers, but you will get some of the answers, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of finding some kind of peace. And you just have to kind of look out and find it, and trust in some. You get good people along the way who help you. A big shout out to my two directors in the foundation, Louis and Lorraine, who helped me start it, and all the ambassadors that we have in the foundation, because they continue to inspire me each and every day, and just the people who donate instruments just along the way who help us out. And what would I say to an artist who's looking for inspiration along the way is just, again, the same thing. Just have patience. Just have, faith, not really in a religious sense, or possibly in a religious sense, but just have the faith that you're doing the right thing. My son used to have this funny photograph over this not a painting. It's actually a meme or whatever. And he had this painting or thing near his bed. And it was actually a unicorn on a psychiatrist's couch. And in the caption, it says, the psychiatrist is telling the unicorn, you have to believe in yourself. And I always thought that was funny because I never forgot that. That's really what it comes down to. You have to believe in yourself. And sometimes you have to make adjustments. Now, believing in yourself doesn't mean you have to be stubborn and thick and pig-headed. And, sometimes you have to make that adjustment. You have to switch. I mean, maybe, if you're in a financial situation and, you can't afford a grand piano and you want to play piano, maybe, for now, take up the harmonica or do something, to get you on that direction, or get yourself a little keyboard. There's a will, there's a way, there's always a direction. Musicians always find each other. Inspiration finds each other. Just keep the faith, hold up to your tenacity, and good things are going to happen.
Al, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us on An Artist's Way of Healing and for sharing your story with us. What's even more amazing about your story is that you are using your art to heal others every day. I can say that you have impacted lives today in a positive way with your words, wisdom, life experiences, and most importantly, the story you shared that led us to your fulfilling journey as an artist. I hope people also get inspired to find their own journeys through art. I can imagine that your journey is not over, nor will it ever be over, as we as artists are continuing to learn through our art every day. Through our art, we learn, grow, expand ourselves, and discover things within ourselves that we never knew existed. This is part of our healing. Our healing through our art keeps us going and thriving. It helps lead us to healthier and more fulfilling lives. While I know you may never necessarily heal from such a traumatic loss in your family, know that you are never alone in your struggles. There are so many people who are listening to your story who can relate to the exact same struggles that your family has dealt with. And I only hope that your story helps those families heal in some way. I am sure those who are listening are rooting for you and the Waffles Foundation also. What you are doing to continue your son's legacy is so inspiring, impactful, and beautiful. Your dedication to finding joy in making others' lives fulfilled gives not only purpose to you, but to others that you impact every day. I am positive that the work that you are doing today would have made your son Matthew proud. He seemed like a wonderful person. I'm sure many would say that he had a pretty cool dad as well, who cared deeply for him. Al, please continue to be an outlet to those who need it. Also, please continue to be an inspirational person by continuing to be the same fun, positive, and outgoing person you are. We need more people like you in this world. Al, before we sign off, could you please tell our listeners where they could find your organization should they wish to make a donation to the Waffles Foundation?
Yes, thank you very much, Jonathan, for having me on. It's an ultimate pleasure. You're a wonderful person, magnificent artist. And yes, folks, please, we'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. You could email me. It's really easy. Waffles like you eat, wafflesfoundation@gmail.com. If you'd like to make a donation, you can make it through the website, or we're available on PayPal, or we're available on Venmo. You could find us on our website. It's www.wafflesfoundation.org. As I say, we're a certified 501c3 foundation, which means you can go onto the IRS has its official website of charities. If you want to donate to a charity and you're not sure about whatever the charity, you could look up that charity by name or by number. And you could look up ours on there under the Waffles Foundation, and you'll find it. You'll find the address and all the information you need to show that it's a legitimate foundation, which we are. I just love to hear from you. Any way we can help, whether it be just an email, and if you're going through the same thing or you need some direction, and maybe creating a 501c3, or you're in the grieving process, or you want to donate an instrument, it would be absolutely fantastic. Would love to hear from you. On behalf of my family, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to our story, being the difference that everyone wants to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Al, and we wish you the best of luck with your organization. With all that said, thank you all again for tuning in. I'll see you next time, friends.